Hi guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Mac with 9 Before in the family.
And I'm Blair.
And today we wanted to pull the curtain back. You can't peel the curtain. No. Pull the curtain back, peel the onion back.
Peel the onion.
Yeah, you peel the onion, pull the curtain back. And we want to just kind of delve into, from us, our standpoint, what it meant to us to move from the U.S. into the U.K. and what led to that decision and what it was like for us moving with our children, which we had 4 of them at the time, and they were still pretty young when we moved over.
Right. So when we first started talking about it, really discussing it, it was around 2018, 2019 timeframe. And we looked at it as an opportunity for us to grow and develop as a family. But of course, we wanted to make sure that the kids still would have the best opportunities available to them. And that meant what kind of lifestyle could we give them in our new environment? What kind of schooling would they be able to have? And what kind of extracurricular activities would they still be able to have? So those are just some of the things that we want to talk to you about today.
Yeah, we started having a discussion around 2018, 2019. Blair and I like to walk, so we'd be walking in the afternoon or in the evenings after work, and we're talking and discussing. And at that point, we hadn't narrowed down on a location as to where we wanted to go. We just knew we wanted to move out of the U.S. We wanted to get really outside the U.S. And we started applying to jobs, and we had thoughts and conversations. A lot of our friends had already moved out of the area as well. We had friends who moved down to Texas, and some other friends California, and some other places across the globe, and people had just moved around. And it wasn't a FOMO, like a fear of missing out type thing, but we did recognize that we'd been in the Washington D.C. area for, at that point, probably about 15 years, and you looked around and like, hey, this is a great place, but I don't know if I want to stay here my entire life. I didn't start out in life saying I wanted to live in the DMV, which is the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. It's a great area. We lived in all three. We lived in D.C., we lived in Maryland, we lived in Virginia.
I didn't live in D.C.
You didn't live in D.C.?
No,
I lived in D.C. I lived in all three in that period. So we just wanted to do something a little different. We had a home down in southern Maryland. We were running a farm, had the kids, had the cows, the pigs, the chickens, the ducks.
Yeah, the ducks.
Yeah, we had an entire farm, and that was a great experience. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah. But we wanted to do something a little different. But we did consider what were the needs of the kids. And really, I guess for us to think about moving, it was an acknowledgement of the fact that we have 4.
Right.
We've always thought about it, and our kids are like a pod. They do so much together.
Yes. And so even when we were talking about it, like, yes, we had one child that was like, no, I don't want to. And then right behind, that was Blakely. And then right behind her was Trey. And he was like, no, let's go. We can go. It's okay. So
Yeah. And at that point, Braden was pretty much like, I don't care what we do. And Matthew
was really young, so he didn't have an opinion yet.
He didn't have an opinion. He was really young. Blakely is a more stationary child. And so you say, well, why would you still move? Because our ultimate objective and goal is to provide the best possible life experience and exposure for our children across the board. And that might not always put them in the most comfortable place in that moment.
Right. Like for us and the success that we've had so far up until that point, it was because we were willing to move or willing to leave our original home states and go to a new place. DC was new to us when we first started our jobs there. So it was the same thing we wanted to impart on our kids, that it's okay to get up and leave. You can always go back home.
Yeah, that's what my dad told me when I left home. We're talking a really long time ago. But he told me, he said, son, go have that experience, try, and if you don't like it, you can always come back home. And I've kind of brought that forward with me, with our kids, and we want to try to make sure they have that understanding. But we don't want them to be afraid of new opportunities, new experiences, new places. And the best way to teach them that is to kind of get up and go, take them places. We do a lot of international travel. A lot of that is about exposure, and a lot of that is about experiences to give our kids those experiences and for ourselves as well.
Right.
So we moved through 2018, 2019, and then we get into 2020, early 2020, and the entire COVID pandemic happens. the world is shutting down left and right. And by this point we had a job offer. I got the job offer in the UK in March of 2020. I got the job offer, and I said, okay, we can go, and then COVID happens,
Right.
and I'm concerned that maybe we wouldn't get a chance to go.
Right. That COVID was going to postpone it too long or just not happen at all anymore. Thankfully, we were still able to press through and to continue on, make that happen. And so we were very grateful for that. That took a lot of moving pieces and planning and more planning and then actioning the plans. So, yeah. And one of those plans was, what are we going to do for the kids as far as their home life? Like, as Mac mentioned, we left a farm, a very active farm, a very, how would you describe the house?
It was dynamic, but it was a really great place. And we sold our home, but it was our space. It was 16 acres, right? And we had one neighbor on our road, and we had a lot of space. And my goal, I said, if I take my children out of this home where they have this much freedom and space to live, be free, and exist, I wanted to come to some place that was similar, which is how the UK got bumped up in the ratings of places to go. I looked at the types of homes that were available here, and I saw a lot of similarities. So where we live now is very similar to the place that we left when we left the U.S. The animals are different, and some of the
Right.
overall aspects are different, but there's a lot of fundamental things that are quite the same. The home is roughly the same size. The kids still have an expansive yard to play in. That's something I just really wanted to bring forward with them as we came over here. I didn't want to diminish
Right.
the experiences of what they had and what they were growing up with. So we left chickens, and now we have pheasants.
Yes.
We left cows, and now we have sheep. And so we just kind of were able to kind of do a bit of a transition. There's a pond out front. We had a pond at our last place,
Right.
and our last place was down a half-mile long driveway. This is quarter mile long driveway. So just we kind of tried to make it as seamless as possible to where things were somewhat the same. So we landed in UK 2020, and our kids were in the middle of the school year. They were doing virtual school, which that was hard. Braden was a kindergartner.
It was kindergarten.
How do you start with a kindergartner who's never been in school?
Has no concept of what school is like, how it should be. How are you going to make friends? How are you going to like really develop a relationship with your teacher? And it was all virtual. It was all just, it was 8 to 6 or 6 to 8 hours of on a tablet, and it was rough.
It was rough. It was
very
really
rough.
hard. The teachers had a lot of expectations of us as the parents. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm not in school. But you know, how do you sit with a 5-year-old for an 8-hour day? And you can't give a 5-year-old a tablet and say go to class.
Yeah.
They don't know what that means.
Right.
That was really hard. The older kids who were already in school, it was a bit difficult for them, but not as hard as it was for Braden, because he was a kindergarten doing virtual school.
Right. So like they would say things like, "Oh, pick up this book and turn to this page." He can't read.
He's in kindergarten. He can't read.
Can't read.
Oh, well,
He doesn't know
let's go to this page.
numbers.
Let's go to that, and then it's okay. That was a hard period.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sound okay because I'm like, not to cut you off, but it's like, okay, let me not relive.
Yeah.
That was a hard
Yeah.
period, because what we did, and we probably should not have done this, was when we left, our kids were in school in the U.S., virtual school. We flew over, we landed in the middle of a COVID lockdown, and there were some very strict rules about how we had to get from where we were to where we were going, meaning we had a courier pick us up.
Right.
We can only go to our quarantine location.
Right. And then we had to be in our quarantine location for the next 2 weeks.
14 days. We could not leave.
Solid.
So once we went into the quarantine location, we could not leave that location.
Right.
And that was in Peterborough, right? And so we were in a quarantine location in Peterborough, and we didn't get a chance to stop to get any food. We had no food.
No.
Did we get SIM cards? We
got SIM cards at the airport.
And
We got a little bit of cash at the airport. And then,
lockdown.
yeah, that was it.
But our kids were still in school back in the U.S.
And
because
that-
it was virtual.
Right.
We
And-
would run the school day with them it started like, 8 p.m.? I mean, it started in the middle of the day.
Yeah, it started around noon here.
and it went to about 8 o'clock at night.
Yes.
Local, like
Yes.
British time. And that was a mistake.
Yes, it was a mistake. We thought it was a good idea because, oh, well, it'll give them something to do, some sort of structure while we're in lockdown, and or in quarantine, it'll give them some sort of structure, and then we'll go from there. Well, that was really, really hard for us. It was hard to transition, just getting used to being on a different time scale. As far as going from Eastern Standard Time to British Standard Time, that was hard to do. And then,
It's 8 p.m. by the time my kids were finishing their school day. They were
Yeah.
tired, they were hungry, we were
Yes.
tired. And we did that for the 2 weeks. The
Yes.
entire time we were in lockdown, we were running this virtual school back in the U.S. And that was just a really rough experience. But the kids loved the home that we stayed in there because it was three or four.
it was like 4 levels. It was a townhouse.
It was,
and
yeah.
they've never been in a townhouse before.
So many stairs, and they would
So-
run up and down the stairs. And I was, knowing that, hey, we're Americans, we're loud, and we're in the UK now, and I know that Brits and Europeans are a bit more quiet, and I was so concerned. But luckily, for the whole time we were there, we didn't have neighbors.
We didn't have neighbors.
We didn't have neighbors. And
we were on an in unit.
yeah,
with
and the home next to us
empty.
was empty, and the
Yeah.
kids would just run up and down the stairs. But they loved it, and they all picked a different room on a different level. But it was cold. That was something that we had to adjust to because we weren't, coming from the U.S., so we weren't really ready for the UK cold.
So it wasn't cold when we moved. It was going through a cold like spritz, but the States had been really warm that summer, and so we flew in from like 80-degree weather.
It was hotter than that. It was
Yeah.
September. In
It was
September,
September
in Virginia, Maryland in September, you could still easily hit 90 degrees
Right.
Fahrenheit. And so it was hot. And then when we landed here, it was
like 50.
yeah.
So it doesn't sound like that big of a jump, but to us, we were freezing and couldn't figure out how to work the heating system in our house. It was the first time having to deal with a boiler, and was just, I don't understand. How do we heat this? I don't.
The heating system went out in the home a couple times. These are just some of the things that you
Yeah.
deal with when you pack up an entire family and move from one country to the other. We only had our luggage with us, and we had to, as parents, we had to take on the responsibility of making sure everything was taken care of, tracking down how to get food in
Right.
quarantine, and then ensuring that our kids were not shell shocked. Like we couldn't show
Like
discomfort
trepidation.
right in
Yes.
front of them. We
Yes.
couldn't show, like, as a parent, like, you have to keep the face up as you're providing. Like I feel like as a parent, the goal is to create a bubble, right? So you keep your kids in a bubble. You keep your children in a bubble. You provide food, shelter, housing, comfort, security, the things that's in your control to provide. As a parent, you're providing this for your children. So we had moved and we had them in a bubble. They lived in a bubble. We flew, we landed, and our goal is to maintain a bubble. It's going to be slightly different, a little bigger, a little smaller, but our goal is to maintain it. So that was our initial concern with keeping our kids okay. And it was all like a big fun vacation to them because they didn't, and again, they're still children, so they don't fully understand that
we had been
we're not going back.
Right, we're not going back. Both Mac and I had been to London just enough to know a little bit about understanding to like, oh look, there's a M&S or a Marks and Spencer. Let's go in here real quick, pick up some sandwiches, pick up some chips.
That was the first day when we landed.
That was the first day. And
yeah, so
just
we got one meal coming out of the airport, and then we got there, and that night
we ordered.
We started ordering food, and we had to figure it out.
Right.
And it would have been a lot easier, but it was again in the middle of a COVID lockdown, and then we were under a strict quarantine. So that was our first initial couple of weeks foray into the U.S. Out of the U.S. and into the UK.
And for kids, it was great to them. Like we said, they got to pick new rooms, had their blankets, had their new. We had just bought them new footed pajamas So that was everything to them, that they got to put on these new pajamas and sleep in this new house with these different beds, and I get to pick my room. Like, yeah, you get to pick your room. Go figure it out. And
Yeah. So we had the passports, we moved, and then it was getting here and then getting them set up. Coming out of the quarantine, things got a little easier. We began to transition into life. But I feel like our objective was using that bubble method of this is the life that they lived in the U.S. and this is what they were comfortable with, and then we were going to take as many aspects of that as possible and transition that to here, understanding that there was going to be a bit of change. But it did help. I will say it did help. Going back to the fact of we have 4 children. They were born 1.5 years. So 2011, 13, 15, and 17 is the years of birth. Our kids are all really close. And so they would sometimes, and they still do this to this day, our children almost all have their own room except the 2 youngest boys. And I'll go upstairs, we'll go in, go into bed, I'll turn off all the lights, shut down the home, and all 4 of the children are sleeping in the same room. And the room changes sometimes, right? They'll be in the little boy's room, or they'll be in Trey's room, or Blake has been kicking them out of her room mostly. But sometimes you go in there and she's in her bed and they're all on her floor. So they're very close, and I think that helped the transition because it wasn't, if we were moving with a singleton, like one child, it would be easier because you're only transitioning one child. But it's kind of like the same philosophy that we have a dog now, and I've always liked to have 2 dogs because they become buddies and they're able to kind of play with each other, and they don't demand to play with you as much. But it's kind of the same philosophy with our 4 kids, that they're in a pod, and yes, they have friends at their own age, they've developed friends, but they also are very much their own friend group.
Right.
And that helps with the transition.
That definitely helps with the transition. Like we say, simple things like at dinner, hey, well, mommy, I don't like this. Okay, you better start trading food with people and see who has what that you like, because this is dinner. And they do that, and so they work through a lot of things together.
One thing I really don't like is gender separation. So we'll have 1 daughter and 3 sons, but we do not foster gender separation in the sense of, well, she's my daughter, she does these tasks, the sons do that task, everyone does the same task. Oh, she can have these toys and they can't have those toys, and she can play with this or they can play with that. Anyone can play with anything.
Yeah, we can definitely show you plenty of pictures of Blakely having a tea party with Captain America and what was it, the other Marvel characters?
Yeah,
but it was a group of them.
Yeah, and so she has brothers, so she plays with her brothers. Her brothers, they
her brothers
play with
would
her.
Eat and drink with her, and let's have a tea party.
Okay. And maybe it helps that the oldest is the daughter, so she sets the tone for the group, and she's always done that as well. But I just think that a lot of it goes back to his parents. How do you foster, different perspectives and roles on gender and like who should do what? And for me, I think that we should always keep that open.
Right.
And not narrow that down. There are no boy colors. There are no girl colors. No. We're not raising a gender neutral home. Like my daughter is a daughter. My sons are sons. But at the same time, there are a lot of little things there that people kind of put in place on top of that. And we're not stacking a lot of those things in place.
No. Like we had a little play kitchen at home. And that was only because somebody had given us a play kitchen. I mean, I think I wanted a workbench actually, but that didn't happen. So we had the play kitchen, and it was right next to our real kitchen. So I would be cooking dinner. Here go the kids. They're cooking whatever it is that they're cooking. Also understanding our last house, it was very, very active when it came to cooking and noises and contraptions going on. Like when I would make cakes, I would bring the kids over to the mixer and have them stand by it or turn it on so they would know what was making that noise and get used to the noise, because I need to make a cake.
Yeah, at that point though, they were all really young. They were
very young.
They were much younger. We didn't bring that kitchen with us. And with twins on the way now, I kind of wish we'd kept. So we to kind of move away from the 4 kids that we have to, I guess, finish us up with a little bit about the 2 kids that we have coming. We threw away everything. We had a double stroller.
Yeah. We had a double stroller up
We
until
had
like maybe 6 months ago.
No. We've been here right 2.5 years. We threw it away a long time ago. Within 6 months of getting here,
Oh, okay.
it was
Okay.
thrown away.
Okay.
No, it was it's been gone.
Yes.
We had a double stroller.
We had a single stroller.
We had a single stroller. We had high chairs. Like all of the things that you would need for babies, we've purged in the last, because we're not doing this again. So we got rid of all those things.
Yeah.
And the double stroller we got rid of first because we'll never need a double stroller
We're
again.
We're too big for this. We don't need
Yeah,
this. We're not
get rid of it.
push.
And we got rid of the double stroller. We got rid of all of those things, and now we're having to go back and think about repurchasing a double stroller, and then we had the car seats.
We had car seats.
How many did we have? We had
2.
no. We had like 5.
Well,
because we had like 2 in each vehicle. Because we had 2 vehicles, right? So we had the car seats in your vehicle, the car seats in my vehicle, and then the bases. Because we had 4 kids, and at one point, 3 of them,
3 of them were in car seats.
3 of them were in car seats, and 1 was in a booster. 1 was in a booster, and 3 were in car seats. So we had a lot of car seats. We had a lot of bases for the car seats.
Yes.
We had all of those things.
We had a lot.
And we've gotten rid of every bit of it.
Yeah.
We don't have any of it, so we have to go back, and it's kind of going backwards. Luckily, we have a couple boxes of diapers, nappies, right, which we never threw away. I don't know why.
Yes.
We kept them. So it'll be a long time because they're the size 5, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it'll be a while before the kids grow into those. But we have them. We have those. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges and the thought process that we had as we transitioned from the U.S. to the U.K. and the considerations that we gave to our children and their well-being. Any other thoughts on that?
The extracurriculars, the swim.
Yeah, we reinstituted all of those. They were in swim. What else were they doing? Well, they would swim, and they were doing basketball, mostly swim, though we really pushed for swim. All of our kids are in swim class. They're still in swim class because as soon as we could get here, we reestablished those extracurricular activities. They were they in Hapkido? They weren't in Hapkido.
No,
They were in martial arts, but they were martial arts training, and then I was doing basketball, and I've been doing that with them and continuing to play sports. And Matthew was doing soccer a little bit. So yeah, we're trying to make sure that. So really for us, it was the thought process was right.
Right.
Everything that we had and everything we were doing, for the most part, bring it over.
Right. Right. And so we wanted, like we said, we mentioned the house, but then also we wanted to make sure that they still had their extracurriculars. Swimming was very important to us. We lived in an area in Maryland that had a lot of water around it, and we wanted to make sure our kids know how to swim. So when we got here, that was the first thing to do, was look for a swim facility and get them started re-engaged with learning how to swim and how to swim properly.
Yeah, it took a while because things were closed up still, but post the COVID, post all the lockdowns, when everything opened up, and as soon as we could, we got the kids back in swim. Now they've been in swim for like a year at least. They've been swimming, and they're doing good. And they're little fish. We'll be looking forward to the day that we can get them into swim meets and have them moving forward like that. Of course, we can't show any video footage of that because we can't film in there in any of those locations. And we also don't try to film a whole lot of stuff with the kids living their lives and their activities and stuff. So we're telling you about it, but they're swimming. They're all little fish.
They're little fish.
Yeah,
nobody's scared about getting water on their face or going into the pool.
No, we're talking like Blake and Trey. They're doing backstroke. They're doing breaststroke. I mean, they're moving along. Matthew's a bit farther behind, but he's only 6. He just turned 6, and Braden's a little farther ahead. So they're doing good. Right. But yeah, that was the thought of, I guess we could call it the the bubble principle, making this up, right? It's kind of it's the bubble principle of parenting,
Yes.
of transitioning children from one location to the other. I guess you could think also, you don't have to move from country to country. The same thing would work city to city.
House to house.
House to house. As
Yeah.
much as you can keep things the same, I think is very helpful.
Right.
And it also helps you. It helps you
Yes.
too. Because we're
Yes.
talking about it from the standpoint of the kids, but it also helps you transition. Like it helped me attach to being in the UK a lot quicker and a lot easier as we left the US and we came here and like, oh, this is the same. Oh, this is similar. Oh, this
Right.
is similar. And, luckily for the most part we came here because also like the lack of language barrier and being able to like speak with people a little easier, those things all were considered as well.
Right.
Well, hey guys, if you like this, be sure to like and subscribe, follow along. Let us know if you enjoyed. And also drop any comments about any other topics that you would like for us to cover as we kind of delve deeper into parenting. We already have 4 kids and it's going up to 6. So I feel like we're pretty decent parents. I feel like we work hard at trying to be good parents. And then we're going to add 2 more on top of that.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna get our experience. We're getting our chops. We're getting our reps. we're getting our reps in.
Definitely getting our reps in.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else?
No, I think that's it for today. Thank you, everyone.